The Mutual Network presents The Shadow.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
The Shadow, who aids the forces of law and order, is in reality Lamont Cranston, wealthy young man about town, who 1 years ago in the Orient learned the hypnotic power to cloud men's minds so that they cannot see him. Cranston's friend, Margot Lane, is the only person who knows to whom the voice of the invisible shadow belongs. Today's adventure, The Long Arm of Death. A tale of a woman's tormented conscience and a dead man's revenge will begin in just a minute. But first, there are many things a person can give besides money to help others. He can give his time, services, and experience. And one of the most valuable gifts of all is within reach of practically everyone. That of blood. Every 60 seconds, 4 Americans need blood. One of the next 4 could be somebody you know. A friend, a relative, a neighbor, or a member of your family. There is only one source of blood. That is from you, the American citizen. Remember, the need for blood goes right on. Call your community blood bank, Red Cross chapter, or hospital blood bank and make an appointment to give blood. This message is brought to you as a public service. And now, The Shadow. It is a cold night in November, and in the Randolph house lying on the outskirts of the city, even the roaring fire in the great fireplace cannot take the chill out of the air. Grace Randolph, standing near the window, looks out at the bleak landscape. And then, as she hears the sound of footsteps approaching along the corridor, she turns anxiously toward the door and shudders.
Ah, I thought I'd find you here.
Did you?
I wondered why you disappeared so abruptly from the dining room.
I was fed up.
Really? With me, darling, your ever-loving husband.
Stop it, George. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's your snide, nasty sarcasm. Stop it.
Very well, Grace. You're the boss around here. You've got all the money.
Yes, and I intend to keep it.
How well I know. Only, just now, darling, I must ask you to part with just a little of it.
Oh, how little?
I told you the other night, I've got to have 10,000.
10,000?
Weren't you listening? Pete Cardoni's getting very impatient. He's given me until tomorrow night to pay off.
I'm not interested in your gambling debts.
I don't think you understand, my love. If I don't pay off that 10,000 by tomorrow night, the odds are 20 to 1 that my bullet-ridden body will be fished up out of some swamp in a week or two.
It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
You don't care.
Listen, my fine, handsome gigolo. A year ago, I was a lonely, miserable, middle-aged spinster. I was on the verge of a nervous collapse, and I had no one to turn to. Then you came along, and you showered me with sympathy and affection. You married me. But all the time, your eyes were on my money.
I was too obvious. What a mistake that was.
Yes, George, it was. Because as soon as I realized what a fraud you were, I swore you'd never get a penny out of me. I hate you, George Randolph. I can't stand the sight of you. You'll get no money out of me as long as I live.
You think not? Wait and see.
I'm not afraid of your threats. I'm not alone any longer. I have friends. Friends who'll protect me.
You have friends?
Yes, and I'll prove it to you right now. I never told you about Lamont Cranston, did I? But,
Hello.
Mr. Cranston, this is Grace Randolph.
Yes.
You told me to call you if I was ever in trouble. I want you to know...
Give me that phone. Hello. Hello. This is George Randolph.
What happened to Mrs. Randolph?
Nothing. Nothing's happened to anybody yet. But it's going to. If I were you, I'd keep my nose out of this.
Really? What's going to happen?
There's going to be a killing.
What?
That's right. And I'm the one who's going to do it.
Wait a minute. You must be out of your mind. Who do you think you're going to kill?
Myself, Mr. Cranston. Just myself.
Step on it, Lamont. Can't you go any faster?
Not on this hill, Margot. It's a steep climb. But we're almost there. That's the Randolph place, perched on the edge of the cliff. It's all lit up.
I hope we're not too late.
To stop Mr. Randolph from killing himself?
Lamont, you don't really think he meant it?
I don't know, Margot. Usually they don't. But this man sounded desperate. Desperate enough to do anything.
Still, if a man is going to...
Margot, look, up there! The top of the cliff!
The top of... Those lights! They're automobile headlights!
Yes, and they're coming closer and closer to the edge of
The cliff! Lamont! The car! It's going over! It's going to crash down right in front of us!
Hold tight, Margot!
He's in there! Someone's in that car! We've got to...
Wait, Margot! We can't go near it yet! The whole car is in flames! George Randolph, or whoever else was in there, will never come out alive.
I did it, Mr. Cranston. Miss Lane, I killed him.
Please, Mrs. Randolph, you've been crying and tearing yourself to pieces for 3 days. You've got to stop this.
Your husband deliberately drove his car over that cliff. He said he was going to do away with himself, and he did it.
But it was my fault. I drove him to it. I sat right beside him in this living room and refused to give him the money he asked for.
You mustn't feel guilty, Mrs. Randolph.
I feel like a murderer. I had no use for him, but I didn't want him to die over a paltry $10,000.
$10,000's a lot of money.
Not to me. I could have given him that much and never felt it. Now he's dead, mangled and burnt almost beyond recognition. Oh, if only I could have spoken to him before he died and begged him to forgive me. I could sleep nights instead of having a murder on my conscience for the rest of my life.
You did identify him, though, didn't you?
Yes, it was horrible. But the commissioner insisted on it. There couldn't have been any mistake. The shreds of clothes, the keys in his pockets, and the wedding ring I gave him when we...
We won't bother you anymore, Mrs. Randolph. We understand how you feel. Come along, Margot. I want to ask the housekeeper a question.
Housekeeper?
Yes. I'd like to know why a confirmed pipe smoker like George Randolph had no tobacco in his room. You'd think.
Hello?
Mrs. Randolph,
Yes. Who is this?
I cannot tell you over the telephone, but if you will consent to see me alone, I have a priceless gift to bestow on you.
A gift? What is it?
I cannot tell you, madam. Not now. All I can say is it has something to do with your late husband.
My husband?
Please, not another word. If you are interested, madam, I will come to see you tonight. Do you wish me to?
Yes. Yes, please. I'll be waiting. You said you had a gift to bestow?
A priceless gift, madam.
What is it, Mr.
Dr. Lowe.
Oh, yes. What is this gift?
I hesitate to tell you. People find it hard to believe.
Tell me, please.
I have the power to reach into the grave and recall those who have passed away.
I don't understand.
Your husband died recently. A sudden, violent death.
Yes.
I can bring him back.
What?
I can bring your husband back to life.
Oh, you're a medium. You mean you can bring back his spirit?
No, madam. I can bring him back in the flesh. I can raise him from the dead.
You're mad.
No, madam. I am a scientist, the greatest scientist the world has ever known. While my nearsighted colleagues have been learning how to use the atom for destruction, I have learned how to use it for creation. I can create and recreate life itself.
I don't believe you.
Of course not. I didn't expect you to. But if I should be able to prove what I say...
Prove it? How?
I can, madam. Believe me. Everything in the universe is either matter or energy. When we die, the matter and energy are separated. I can reunite them for short intervals.
Time to talk to George, to beg his forgiveness? Will you do it, Dr. Lowe? Will you do it for me?
That is why I am here. But there is one condition.
Oh?
I need money for further experiments. That is why I came to you. You are wealthy. I will bring your husband back if you pay me $5,000.
Yes. I'll pay you 10,000. Anything you ask. If you can really do what you say you can.
1,000 now. The balance when your husband appears.
Yes. Anything you want. If only I can see George once more. Get him to forgive me. Here's your money.
Thank you, madam. You will not be sorry. I will arrange the meeting for tomorrow night at 11.
Where, Dr. Lowe?
At the cemetery. I will bring my equipment early and do what I have to do. By the time you arrive, everything will be ready. You will be there at the crypt?
Yes. I'll be there.
Good. Come alone. And I pray for you. Don't forget the rest of the money. Good night.
Mrs. Randall?
Oh, Jenny! You startled me.
I'm sorry, madame, but that man, I do not like him. He frightens me.
You heard what he said?
No, I heard nothing, but I saw him as he left. He has a terrible look on his face, like he is the devil himself.
Oh, that'll do, Jenny. You're my housekeeper, nothing more.
And the money in his hand? Why did you give him money? What is wrong with you, madame? Please tell Jenny.
Mind your own business. And get back to your housekeeping. Leave me alone, Jenny.
Very well, madame. But Mrs. Randall, I am afraid. Terribly afraid.
So am I, Jenny. So am I.
Cold, Mrs. Randall?
No, just frightened. The cemetery, the strange shadows. How long do we have to wait outside the crypt?
It's almost time. At exactly 12 o'clock, that door will swing open, and your husband will appear.
I still don't believe it.
Shh!
It's midnight.
Be quiet. Do not move.
The door! It's opening!
He will appear in a moment. I will leave you now.
No! Don't!
Who's there?
George!
Who is it? Out there in the darkness. Who wakened me?
George! Is it really you?
Who's out there? Come closer so I can see you.
George! Don't you know me? It's Grace.
Grace, go back where you came from and leave me alone.
Wait, George, please. I must talk to you.
We have nothing to talk about. You're alive. I'm dead.
Not now. You're alive now. I can see you, hear you. I can touch you. I feel your hand like this.
Don't touch me. I can't stand the touch of your warm, moist fingers. I'm dead. Don't you understand? Dead. Because of you. You killed me, Grace. You made me take my own life.
No, don't say it.
You killed me. I want you to remember that. Every day you live, I want you to remember. You killed me.
No, George, please. I can't stand it. Oh, you've got to forgive me. Say it, please. Say you forgive me so I can sleep in peace.
You'll never have any more peace, Grace. As long as you live. This is my revenge. Goodbye, my love.
Wait! Don't go! Come back! Come back!
It is of no use, madam. He is gone for the present. In a moment, his molecules will disintegrate into thin air until midnight tomorrow. Then the cycle will renew itself.
Tomorrow?
Yes. And now, please, the money.
Progress in nursing means better health for the nation. Nursing has come a long way since Florence Nightingale nursed the wounded at Crimea 100 years ago. Today, our nurses are skilled workers with excellent preparation for their jobs in caring for the sick and in teaching people to stay healthy. There is still a demand for more nurses than we now have. Learn more about this career with a future. Inquire at your nearest hospital or write to Nursing Careers in care of your postmaster. This message is brought to you as a public service. And now, back to the shadow. Tormented by guilty feelings over the death of her husband, Grace Randolph has paid a strange scientist thousands of dollars to recreate and reassemble the molecules of the dead man, so she can see him and beg his forgiveness. But the project backfires, for George not only refuses to forgive her, but swears vengeance. As Grace begins to crack under the strain of fear and anxiety, her housekeeper Jenny appeals to Lamont for help. Now, a day later, at Grace Randolph's house.
Excuse me, Mrs. Randolph?
Jenny! I told you I didn't want to be interrupted.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Randolph, but these people, Mr. Cranston and Miss Lane, they have come a long way to see you. They're waiting in the foyer.
Oh, I don't care how far they've come. They weren't invited. Tell them to go away. I'm busy. Dr. Lowe and I have a very important matter.
Please, Mrs. Randolph, do not send them away on my account.
If you will only see them, madame, for a moment.
Oh, very well. For one moment. Show them in, Jenny.
Yes, madame.
You sure it's all right, Dr. Lowe?
Of course. Just say nothing about the matter.
Mr. Cranston, Miss Lane, how nice to see you. Please come in.
Thank you, Mrs. Randolph. Sorry to barge in on you this way.
It's all right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so busy.
We just wanted to make sure everything was under control.
Of course it is. This is Dr. Alexis Lowe, a friend of mine.
Oh? Doctor?
PhD, biochemistry and physics.
Is that so? I'm always impressed by scientists. Any special field?
Nuclear fission.
My, that sounds important.
It is, Miss Lane. At least my end of it is.
Mr. Cranston, was there anything special you wanted to see me about?
No. We were just passing by.
But Lamont.
No, Margot. We mustn't keep Mrs. Randolph from her business. We'll run along now.
Please come again, won't you? In a week or so.
Yes, we'll be glad to. Goodbye, Dr. Lowe.
Goodbye, Mr. Cranston.
Oh, Mrs. Randolph, just one question. In this picture, the man playing tennis, was that?
Yes, that was George. Why?
Just a thought. Thank you. Goodbye.
He asks many questions, that one. I'm not sure I like that.
Please, Dr. Lowe. I didn't ask you here to talk about Cranston.
Why did you call Mrs. Randolph? You said it was urgent.
Dr. Lowe, you've got to stop him.
Who?
George, my husband. He's driving me insane. He haunts me day and night.
But you wanted him back. You paid me to recreate him.
No, I want you to destroy him. Destroy him forever.
Destroy him? That is very difficult, madam. There are strong resistances. I'm not sure I can do it.
You must do it. You must, do you hear? I don't care what it costs. Name your price. $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. I'll pay anything, but you must do it.
Very well, madam. Under those terms, I am willing to try. Come to this cemetery tomorrow night at midnight.
The cemetery? Again? Must I?
Yes. I can do nothing without you. Remember, at midnight, and bring $50,000 with you in cash. George! Okay, George, it is I. You can come out of the bedroom. I told you, you're perfectly safe here in my house.
With all due respect, Dr. Lowe, I'll decide what's safe and what's not.
Suit yourself. I just saw Grace.
What does she want?
She wants to destroy you.
Ah, then it worked.
To the last detail. She's going mad, George. She can't stand it any longer. She will pay anything to be rid of you.
How much is anything?
$50,000. She's bringing it with her to the cemetery tomorrow night. In cash.
$50,000. Good, good. I'll take my share and disappear from the face
George! The front door. There's somebody behind it. You can see.
Shh. Ah, you're right, Alex.
Grab her, George.
Let go of me! Let go, do you hear? Let go of me!
Well, Jenny, our fine devoted housekeeper. Heard all you wanted to.
Yes, I heard enough.
How did you get here? How did you know where I live?
I got in the back of your car while you were talking to Mrs. Randolph.
Very clever.
Clever enough to spoil your plans.
Spoil them? Oh no, Jenny, never.
No, when I tell Mrs. Randolph and the police...
That's just it, Jenny. You will never tell anyone.
Why not?
Because, my dear, a few hours from now, your poor, mangled body will be found lying on the road where some vicious hit-and-run driver ran you down.
Hate that place.
Nobody goes to the morgue for fun.
That poor woman, Lamont, run down by some hit-and-run driver.
Is that what you think it was, Margot? Just an accident?
The commissioner seems to think so. Don't you?
I'm not sure. There was one thing I noticed back there in the morgue that I want to check on.
Check on? What was it?
This little scrap of paper was stuck to the bottom of Jenny's shoe.
Paper?
Might be part of an envelope or a letterhead. You can just make out a few letters on it.
L-E-X. What do you suppose it stands for? Lexington? Silex?
I don't know what it stands for, but I have a hunch. And if my hunch is right, there'll soon be work for the Shadow.
It's almost time, Mrs. Randolph.
Do I have to be here in the cemetery, Dr. Lowe? Do I?
Yes. Yes, you must. In a few seconds, it will be midnight, and George will emerge from the crypt as he has done every night. Only this time, this portable cyclotron will blast him apart forever, convert him entirely into energy.
It's horrible. It's like murder.
You forget, dear lady. One cannot murder the dead.
If only.
Shh. Now, as he emerges from the crypt, don't move. Don't stir.
Who is there? Is someone out there in the...
Now! This is it! The end of George Randolph! Back into the crypt forever! In time, his body will cease to be radioactive. But now, we must get away before we ourselves become contaminated by the poison air and dust around us. You have the money?
Yes, here it is.
Hurry!
Here, you'll find it all in this envelope. Take it and... Oh, look! Behind you, the door to the tomb. It's opening. He's there. He's still alive. Look!
Impossible! There's no one there. There cannot be. Who's that? Who laughed?
The shadow.
Shadow? What shadow? I see no one.
Nevertheless, Dr. Lowe, I'm here. Every last atom and molecule of me. Your cyclotron hasn't affected me at all.
You heard? You heard everything?
Yes, Dr. Lowe. The shadow knows all. He knows the low, contemptible scheme you and George Randolph worked out for fleecing this poor woman.
George! Scheme? I don't understand.
Do not listen, Mrs. Randolph. This is some cheap ventriloquist meddling in something he doesn't understand.
No, Dr. Lowe, not a ventriloquist. The shadow doesn't play tricks. He is here to see that you and your confederate pay the penalty for extortion and murder.
No, not murder. It was an accident. She ran in front of the car.
You lie, Dr. Lowe. You killed Jenny because she knew too much and unknowingly left your signature on the bottom of her shoe. A scrap of paper with 3 letters of your first name, Alexis, and the body that was found in the burning car. You and Randolph killed someone his height.
No, George did it, not I.
You and Randolph killed someone his height and build, dressed him in George's clothes and jewelry, and then started the car over the cliff, figuring he'd be burned beyond recognition.
All right. We killed them. Kill them both. And we'll kill you too, Shadow, and Mrs. Randolph, and anyone who stands in our way. George, come out and help me dispose of these.
No use in calling George, Dr. Lowe. He can't answer you right now. He's lying on the floor of the crypt, unconscious.
It's a lie. I'm going in there. George, where are you?
You may leave now, Mrs. Randolph. You are safe. Don't try to force your way out of the tomb, Doctor. The police are on their way here now. And when the law is through with you, you and George will have a place of your own. Every bit as dark and peaceful. The shadow knows.
Poor Mrs. Randolph. I just hope she got home all right. I saw her get into her car and drive off.
We'll drop in on her now and take a look. I'm sure she's all right, now that she knows what was really going on.
Lamont, when you got to Dr. Lowe's place as the shadow and saw George Randolph there, why couldn't you have notified Commissioner Weston at once?
What the shadow sees and hears, Margot, is not evidence in court of law. I had to let them get to the cemetery.
So you could have me lurking nearby to witness everything going on.
And call the police at the right moment.
Lamont, that day when Grace called you and George grabbed the phone and said he was going to kill himself?
Yes.
He'd already murdered that poor man in cold blood.
He knew Grace wouldn't give him the money. He only used her to make his suicide threat more convincing.
What I still don't understand is how Commissioner Weston and Mrs. Randolph both identified the corpse in the car as George.
Very simple, Margot. He and the doctor laid their plans very carefully. Picked a stranger George's height and build. If a man says he's going to kill himself, then drives over a cliff in his own car, has all the proper identification, and is identified by his own wife, what reason is there for the police to be suspicious?
I suppose you're right. Still, you did suddenly suspect that George Randolph was alive.
Yes, but I dismissed the idea at first. You see, the teeth of the corpse found in the car were obviously those of a pipe smoker, but there was no sign of tobacco in George's room. I figured he'd given it up.
And then?
The picture of George Randolph playing tennis. The one we saw after Jenny asked us to drop in.
What about it?
He was serving right-handed, Margot. Yet the corpse was obviously left-handed.
How could you tell that?
The development of muscle in the fingers, wrist, and forearm. The medical examiner commented on it.
So Dr. Lowe and Randolph went to all that trouble, murdered 2 people, and still overlooked the simplest clue.
Yes, Margot. Like so many other criminals, they'd forgot that dead men do tell tales.
This transcribed story is copyrighted by Street and Smith Publications. All names and places in today's story are fictitious. Any similarity to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Listen again next week, same time, same station, when the Shadow will demonstrate that
The weed of crime bears bitter fruit. Crime does not pay. The Shadow knows.
The Shadow is brought to you every Sunday by the Mutual Network. Lamont Cranston is played by Brett Morrison, Margot by Gertrude Warner. The script was written by Judith and David Bublik, and the entire production is under the direction of Chick Vincent. This is Ted Milley, inviting you to tune in again next week, same time, same station, for the next exciting adventure of The Shadow. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.